Welcome back, fellow jazz bums. Today we have Zev Feldman here. We're going to get into Record Store Day 2024 with him. Before we do that, remember to like and subscribe. We're also going to drop a link to the Jazz Bums Discord in the description below. You can join and come hang out with us there. And we also live stream every Friday, so come and check us out there as well. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Felipe to get us started.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chris. Welcome back again to the channel, Zev. Today, we're going over some of the 2024 April Record Store Day releases. So for the ones that don't know, we have a great interview from a few months back with Zev. So we have a full breakdown on his life and everything. But in a nutshell, Zev is great producer, music connoisseur, has been working with labels in the industry for decades, and more recently, for a few decade or so, he's been deeply involved in releasing this great archival history reissues, never before listened, seen material for Record Store Day to resonance.org that has been expanding into many subsidiary sister labels. So today we're going to go over the 11 releases we have for this year, like maybe a record. Zev, thank you so much for joining us. I hope we have a great chat and conversation, and let's go for it. It's amazing.
Thank you so much, Felipe. It's really great to be back and joining you, gentlemen. Thanks so much for having me today.
I mean, I love all this stuff you put out at Record Store. I've got a ton of it, but the fact that you have 10 or 11 this year is obviously a record for you. It's just crazy how much stuff's coming out. How did you pull that off?
Working on projects over the last, year or two. Like some of these kind of started crystallizing a while ago, and we were working on some of them. I didn't set out to do 10 releases, and it worked out this way. It just happened to be that way. And it was a lot, and it's really because of a tremendous team of people that I work with, and I'm standing here before you being the face of the operation. But I definitely have to extend my gratitude to Zach Shelby Cisco and also James Batsford, who have been my two production managers now, especially Zach over the last 10 years, but working with George Claben at Resonance, and also with Jordi Soleil and Carlos Augustin Calmbert at Elemental, and Corey Weeds at Cellar Live. It's really provided me an opportunity of now flexing this creative muscle. I'm constantly finding music, and a lot of music that makes me excited, and I feel like we've cracked this code in order to determine what does it really take to bring it to the marketplace. And I've just been very fortunate. This year is just an amazing, this is kind of a pinnacle for me. It didn't set out to be like that, but it's worked that way out. And frankly, it's been a little stressful, but I'm very happy. I feel very proud to be a part of this, but more importantly, I'm just excited because all of these artists, they move us. They speak to us, and all the viewers who are out there listening, and I just felt like there would be an opportunity of really building something special. And we worked really hard on that. And I'm just really happy to be here to share with you the treasures, my bounty this year for Record Store Day 2024.
Yeah. And we just want to thank you for being a friend of the channel, and being kind of a friend of the the community that we're a part of here. A lot of our friends have been able to work with you, get promo copies, or interview you as well. So I think I just wanted to offer just a line of appreciation for engaging with us, because I think it's really fun for everybody to be able to peek inside the process and learn about kind of how these things get developed. So thank you.
Thank you. Man, without you guys and without the people that are supporting these projects, I wouldn't be here. So I love it. I loved speaking with people and meeting folks, and no, let's keep running.
Lead the way. Where are we going to start?
Why don't we start with the saxophone colossus himself, Sonny Rollins? Let's talk about Freedom Weaver, the 1959 European tour recordings. So very lucky, beyond words to express how grateful I feel to once
Mhm.
again get a chance to collaborate with the great Sonny Rollins. And last year and actually a couple of years since we put out Rollins and Holland, which was about 3 or so years ago, we had been looking to find a new project that we could collaborate with Mr. Rollins on again. And these recordings have circulated amongst some collectors for a long time and been available as bootleg releases. But I feel that it's very important. We have an opportunity of righting the wrongs from the past, and that really means paying the intellectual property rights holder. This music, some of it has been circulating for so long. Mr. Rollins had never even been paid for it before. And we wanted to do an official release that would live on. So, with the support of my boss, George Claben, we came together with Mr. Rollins, who was very cool, very understanding, and supported this project coming to fruition, which took music from this 1959 tour of Europe. The music is just absolutely daring. I've said this before, but he's playing without a net. It's a trio format. And there's something really striking about that format personally for me. I even think back, wasn't always about listening to Sonny Rollins in the trio. I even think about listening to Bloomington from Branford Marsalis when I was in college. And I just love this format. But Mr. Rollins in 59, in a period where the music was evolving and changing, all sorts of historic shifts were happening in jazz music. And Mr. Rollins went to Europe with Henry Grimes on bass, Pete LaRocca on drums, and he did this tour in 59. Along the way, a couple of other drummers also joined, Kenny Clark and also Joe Harris. But I'm just really happy to present these releases, and it's a really deluxe package. It's 4 LPs, 180-gram vinyl. It's mastered by Bernie Grunman, and we have a really beautiful booklet with all sorts of great voices, from Joe Lovano to Branford Marsalis, James Brandon Lewis, and a wonderful essay by the great author and journalist Bob Blumenthal.
I've listened to this whole box twice now, and this booklet is just amazing. I mean, this is probably my favorite booklet that y'all put out with one of these releases that I have. I mean, yeah, you named some people. James Carter's got a segment in here. Sonny's got an interview in here. Peter Brodsman.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And then the music on this one it's just through the roof. You like the trio format. I love that. What is it for? Is it from 4 different shows? I'm trying to remember how I'm looking. So yeah, there's one in Stockholm, which sounds amazing. That's the Swedish radio Stockholm stuff. I love the fact that it's basically in the order of the tour, right? For the most part. And you know, Kenny Clark, the stuff with Kenny Clark on here is just, I mean, it's just crazy. I love this set a lot. Y'all did an amazing job.
Well, I don't have the booklet, but for the Brotsman interview, Zev, did you connect with him? How did that work to get his details in there?
I had crossed paths with him somewhere before. I can't remember. When we were doing this release, like, look, I always try to think about who would be really interesting to speak with about the music of Sonny Rollins. And I know, of course, Peter Brotsman is from a different school, so to speak. But I said, why don't we ask? And he was a fan of Sonny's, and he had seen Sonny Rollins, and he had something to say. Now, I had no idea that this would turn out to be one of the last interviews that we did with him before he passed. But Peter Brotsman is a very important figure in music, in this music. And I was very happy to speak with him. So Aidan Levy, who you have his book, Saxophone Colossus, on your shelf there behind you, Felipe.
Yes.
We actually checked in with Aidan. There it is, right there. An amazing book. This came out.
It's a phone book, yes. It's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes. Well, we checked with Aidan. There was actually all sorts of corrections from some of the original bootleg releases with regards to all sorts of details. So I can also tell you that what we have in this release is definitive. even in terms of the information that's reported and provided. And it was important to get that right. See, this music will live on now because of this official release versus these nefarious recordings that have existed in the wild for a long time.
I just want to jump on that. So I listened to the box before I sent it over to Chris. We kind of made a split here, you know, each one gets a grab. Sound quality is terrific. But I also wanted to comment on the music because most of what you're putting, it's great working with the Dutch and French, you know, releasing those great presentations over Europe. And I think by those times, if you feel the same, because here was more like a commercial thing or protest. In Europe, you think they're kind of allowing themselves to be more authentic and playing a different type of music than they were playing here? How do you feel about that, the music itself?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because, well, I think maybe, I'm not sure if it was different over there versus here. I know that at least in this instance, Sonny Rollins had been playing even in 57 with this format. And the Village Vanguard recordings also speak to this too, which Blue Notes, what a classic album. But I don't know, you know, it's interesting. There is definitely something about European audiences though too that I think really embrace so much of this art. It's different audiences. We're all universal, I think, in terms of being fans of the music. I got to think about that though. But I think, you know, this is avant-garde for its time. This was taking chances, very daring music. But that's also why Sonny Rollins is so amazing too. And he was doing this in 1959. That's extraordinary.
It is. The other thing that really struck me with this set is just kind of the different recordings, right? There's a couple of live shows, there's a couple of really amazing sounding, you know, radio broadcast recordings. And then the last three sides are like full side songs, which is just right up my alley. I mean, he stretches out for a whole side of an album, you know, 3 times in this set. So to me, you know, we were talking about this, you know, a couple days ago about, you know, the contemporary box that came out recently with, you know, Way Out West and Contemporary Leaders, and there was another album in there, is great. But these live recordings and just, you know, the between the live recordings and the liner notes and getting that whole experience, it's like I am connecting with that tour that he did right before he went to the bridge, right? Like right after this, he stopped playing for a while. He took one of his, you know, one of his breaks, and I love the quote, I think was in the liner notes, that I think he said, if I can't play for them, if I don't play for me, or something like that, right? Like his the insight into his mindset at that time that's in the liner notes, where he's, you know, doubting himself, you know, wondering if he was good enough to play for these audiences, is just you know, an interesting aspect of his personality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting the players that he's with here. So like Henry Grimes, that's, you know, where Henry Grimes was going to go. And where I just feel like you can see the influence of like the kind of the edge that these players are going to provide to Sonny, and what his mindset and where he's thinking about where he's going to take his music, which kind of is unsurprising that like the bridge, you know, follows this. So the players on this set are incredible. So that's another thing to check out too. But we should move on. Next title.
Why don't we talk about the great Art Tatum?
Oh yeah.
So I have our release here we call Jewels in the Treasure Box. This is the 1953 Blue Note Jazz Club recordings. Man, this one fills a really tall order for us at Resonance Records. George Claben and I have been on the hunt for years and have said to us, wouldn't it be like awesome? I mean, we have like a list, if you will. Dolphy was on that list. Art Tatum and Charlie Parker and some others, but we've been looking for Art Tatum recordings for a long time, and he's just an artist that is just like George and I are just enamored with, and we've been trying to find stuff for a long time, and you just don't make Art Tatum discoveries like this. They don't just you just don't find stuff. And it's probably been about 20 years since the last major release, which was on the Storyville label. They did a beautiful box set of different air checks and other recordings that were done. And Lauren Schoenberg wrote the liner notes, which are amazing. But it all happened about 2 or 3 years ago. I was contacted by a gentleman named Parker Fischel, who actually does some archival work, believe it or not, with Bob Dylan's camp and others. And he had spoken with the late great Phil Schaap. And Phil Schaap said, you should talk to Resonance. And why? Because Parker had introduced us to the family of Frank Holtzfein. He was the gentleman who owned the Blue Note Jazz Club in Chicago, late 40s through the 50s. And he had a collection of tapes. And they contacted us based on a referral, which is amazing. And it happens more frequently than you think, that people recommended, suggested to call us, and we have a conversation. But this was something pretty epic. We had a chance to see this this list of tapes, and there were these Art Tatum recordings that were on there. And we had to listen, and they weren't just good, they were just extraordinary documents of Tatum, recorded actually quite well. And there was no drums, there was like no distortion. But we had these recordings with the legendary bassist Slam Stewart and Everett Barksdale on guitar. And this was a unit that toured all over the country and played night after night. And when you listen to them, the music is extremely tight. They have like got telepathic powers. They've played enough shows together that they've got it down, and they're a really amazing working unit. But we were just really blown away by this music. So, well, anyways, we struck a deal with the Holtzfein family, with their children, Tom and Jean, to put these recordings out. But we didn't know who the Art Tatum estate was. And it took about a good year and a half to identify that party, all sorts of investigative work. And I could give you some real stuff I can't even tell you. Finding out, trying to find out, chasing down, like, who are the people that speak on behalf of the estate? Well, I'm lucky to say that we found who that party was, and we were able to work with them on this release. This is an official release that's endorsed by the estate of Art Tatum, Toledo, Ohio's very own. And it's extraordinary. It's 3 hours. It's never been released before. Matt Luthans, who worked with us on our Grammy-nominated box set, Nat King Cole's Hitting the Ramp, he worked with us on these, and he worked from the original tape reels, and he did an amazing job. And something that I also want to speak to is the ambiance and the chatter that was captured in the room. You really feel like you're in somebody transported you back to 1953 at the club, and you're sitting there and you hear the room, you hear people, and there's this one guy in the audience shouting requests. And first they do begin to begin, and then and the guy starts shouting out another request. I just played your song, pipe down. So similar sort of banter like this. Even an introduction, his friend, the dark angel of a violin, Eddie South, was in the audience, who was his friend. Anyways, it's just extraordinary. It's a great series of recordings, never been out, and it really serves as a reason, a purpose for us to go back and revisit the legacy of this man. And I'm just happy to be a part of this, really thrilled. I know George and I both feel that way, very passionate about this project.
Yeah, Zev, I think you translated what, most of us feel. I mean, I've been reading jazz books from the past year or so, tons, and any musician, no matter what the instrument, everybody says Art Tatum's the guy, right? If like Bud Powell would say that it's Art Tatum, Charlie Parker, although I think people talk a lot about Duke in a sense, but it's a different thing.
Yeah.
I think in terms of developing style and setting up foundation for what came next, I think Art Tatum, he was the guy. And I was also in this research, kind of struggling to find a starting point. And when I saw this box, I had, oh, wow. Here's a picture of the tape that you mentioned.
Yep.
It's an amazing booklet. Again, the photography work here, it's incredible. And here it is, the 3-disc set. I showed this a couple of times, but I don't get tired. I mean, this picture is the way you kind of laid it out.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And it's a nice trifold. Matthew Luton's did an amazing job, as you said. It's not like a tone poet or Music Matters, you can't, but it comes across sounding really good. I really like the ambience. Reminds me of the Utah Hip, those Chicory House. You can hear the silverware, right?
Mhm.
And it's so amazing. You just feel like you're there. And the music here is fantastic. I mean, he's a monster. He won't stop playing. And the way those melodies that come out of the piano and the way they're played is just unbelievable. And I'm so glad that I'm starting my Art Tatum journey with this record here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I love so much Art Tatum. I'm trying to think like this. I first started listening to those Clef Norgrand sides, all the solo
Ooh,
piano stuff, man.
Yeah.
I actually have them in a couple of box sets because I love the David Stone Martin illustration so much. I'm kind of a sick dude like that. And I really, I love the small group stuff that he did.
Oh, yeah.
And do
Yeah.
you all know the record that he did for Norman Granz with Buddy Rich and Lionel Hampton?
Yeah, I have that. I have
Oh yeah.
Dude,
the one where Buddy's leaning over on the piano.
yeah.
That's a great photo.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I appreciate him in all sorts of different settings, right? And this is really an amazing group that's really up there.
Mhm.
I don't have a whole lot of Everett Barksdale, and I
Right.
think he actually he played on a Muse session or two. There's one that comes to mind.
Mhm.
I'm spacing out about, but anyways, what were you gonna say, Chris?
Well, I was gonna. So there's a couple of things that's brought up for me. Felipe, that was his first pick. We did a little draft of all the promos after Felipe got him to figure out what we were gonna get. And
Yeah.
that was his first
It's
pick, and I was
fun.
like, ugh, when he picked that one, because the interesting thing to me about these recordings are for Art Tatum was an earlier generation than a lot of the guys that we listened to. Right, he was a little bit earlier. He was a
Yeah.
pioneer. He was maybe the best jazz piano player of all time, just virtuosity off the charts, right? And so there's not as much recordings of him, on like an LP format that were recorded well and sound good, right?
Yeah.
I love all the old early recordings like a Charlie Parker and Art Tatum and stuff, but to hear this group sounding amazing, right? Is a big deal for me. You talked about like the Norman Granz stuff, the Pablo recordings that he did. That box set is amazing. But I don't know, I'm really blown away by this one. I can't believe y'all found this stuff and then it's never been released before.
I can't, yeah, I really think it's like Dead Sea Scrolls of that sort of epic proportion, right? Because you just don't make these sort of discoveries. And I only know because like I've looked in so many different places trying to attempt to find something like this.
Mhm.
But the fact that it's a club recording too. I don't know. It's got all the feels, as they say, I guess.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When I saw this in the press release, this was the top pick for me. So,
Oh man.
and one thing to note is when this was put out, I started thinking more about Art Tatum, his representation in my listening, and I went back to kind of, do I have any Art Tatum stuff? And I only have two records. I have the Lionel Hampton Buddy Rich Trio one.
There you go.
It's
Yeah.
stunning. I mean, it's just a stunning presentation. And it's on Clef. And then I also have this this Art Tatum with Ben Webster, which is also
I have that
very
too.
good. Highly recommend this one. But that's it really. And I think to Chris's point, like, perhaps it was just the time that he was performing and where, the recording industry was that, there isn't all that much really kind of very, well recorded Art Tatum stuff in small groups. So anyway, it's really cool that, people are going to have an opportunity to add him to the collection.
I hope people enjoy. Oh, and by the way, Brent Hayes Edwards wrote the liner notes. Parker was like, you gotta get familiar with this guy's work. And he just wrote the new biography of Henry Threadgill. And he wrote the main liners of this too. And it's a really brilliant essay. Oh man, get into the writings on this too. So
That's the one.
that's the book right there.
Yeah.
So he wrote the liners for us. And I'm really glad that we met him. But we spoke to read Spike Wilner and Eric Elu, read their pieces.
Mhm.
But you know, we reached out to a whole bunch of different folks and even spoke with, I believe, Michael Weiss on there too. I have to look at the brag sticker to even keep it straight. Oh my God, we spoke to Sonny, we spoke to Ahmad Jamal, spoke to Monty Alexander. And the great Terry Gibbs likes to tell a funny anecdote that you can read about getting elbowed in the nuts by Art Tatum, as he told us, because he was standing too close to the piano when he was doing one of these lines. That's Terry Gibbs. And anyways, but in all these photographs in there too, I want to tell you something as well. That photo that we use on the cover, this is by one of the most prolific, important photographers in jazz history, the great Herman Leonard.
Mm.
And that photograph was actually previously colorized on an original Verve compilation that was called, I believe, The Greatest Piano of Them All. And anyways, that's the original photograph in its sincere black and white form. Anyway, I get so I really love the presentation. I don't mean to get hung up on those details, but I think
Yeah.
that one of the touchstones of these projects that I do, I really try to build something that's captivating, that somebody will see on the end rack and it will speak to them. It'll hypnotize you or something. And I just think that really good creative art direction and design is something so important. If we have a chance to do this, why not go in? I mean, I'm always looking like, who can we speak to? Who would have something interesting to say?
Yeah.
Ahmad Jamal met Art Tatum, okay? I mean, and when you speak to some of these other gentlemen, it's about getting like another optic lens. That's the picture.
Yeah.
But that was colorized. This is the original. And guess what? That's actually a really great picture. I have that
Mhm.
album. I knew it was a compilation, but I got it for the cover because it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. All
But
right, now we've only gone through two titles. We have more to get through, but I
all
think
right,
everybody's enjoying the conversation, so it's totally
good.
cool.
Okay.
But where should we go next?
Why don't we talk about a pair of recordings from Cannonball Adderley?
All right.
Elemental music. So first we have Burnin' in Bordeaux, live in France, 1969. This is from the Bordeaux Jazz Festival. This was with Cannonball and Nat. This has got Joe Zawinul in the piano chair, Victor Gaskin on bass, and it has Roy McCurdy on drums.
Yeah.
And then we have 72s live at the Olympia, poppin' in Paris, as we call it. And this is a different band. This is a recording. Those are the original tape reels from the ORTF, stored at INA in France, who we've been working with now for a decade, at Resonance, at Elemental. And they have an incredible wealth of music up in those hills, but only worth releasing if you can get the rights to them. And we got the rights with these recordings to put out. I had a chance to, oh, by the way, just to finish on Poppin' in Paris, it's George Duke in the piano chair.
Mm.
It's Walter Booker on bass and it's Roy McCurdy on drums.
Yeah.
But look, these two recordings kind of, I guess you could go 69, 72 like this. But basically, it really tells a narrative of the greatness of the working bands that Cannonball Adderley had. And they toured all over the world. And it was a really amazing working unit. And if you listen to this music, it's absolutely burning. But there's really about two different types, two different phases of, I don't like saying phase, but there are two periods of the recorded output of Cannonball Adderley and what you were getting live in concert. And had a chance to collaborate once again. We went to Olga Adderley Chandler, who's Cannonball's widow, and I worked with her several years ago on a reel-to-reel release called Swingin' in Seattle.
Mhm.
She was very nice to grant her consent, and we were able to sign up the estate being a full participant in this release. But these are two amazing recordings that come from the ORTF radio archives in France, and two different bands. And we start going from this earlier period in 69. And as we start going into 72, where, we have Black Messiah from George Duke being performed, it's a shift. But It's great music, two different bands, two different times. And when we were working on this project, I thought it would be really important to put them out together because I think it really helps tell the larger story, the narrative. So we, you know, I'm really happy again. And by the way, all these releases, Matt Luthen's cut the lacquers. For Sonny Rollins, it was Bernie Grunman, but everything else here today, Matt Luthen's cut. So we'll talk about that more. But
It is
anyway,
great. It's great to hear Matt Luthens is getting more opportunities to work on projects like this. I first discovered him through his Sinatra website, 1150.com, and he essentially crowdsources all different types of Sinatra recordings from, I think, 50, it's like 53 to 62 or something, every title. And he basically ranks which ones are, the best sounding. So as a Sinatra file, that was like the like Bible for collecting. Highly recommend people check that out. But the fact that I knew him through that, and then seeing him and his mastering evolve, especially over the past year, he's
Yeah.
really been able to get some really great work. I think he works both with Chad's group over with Acoustic Sounds Analog Productions QRP. And I think Chad has Doug Sax's mastering lab, right? That's where he's mastering. And then,
correct.
and then in addition to that, he works with Kevin Gray at Coherent. So he's working, I think, with in both companies. And his work is outstanding.
And he's really a joy to work with, and he's a great guy, and he's a musician, and he's got great ears. And we're even working on a project for Blue Note right now. I can't say enough good things about him. It's really been a blessing. When you work with certain people, you get into a groove. Like when we work together, it makes the process, and whether it's Zach and I or with Matt. And I'm just really, really proud to be able to work with him. And it's really been nice.
I listened to the files for the 72 release, and I have the 69, and Joe Zawinul on there is just amazing. They do a bunch of his tunes. Some of this stuff is like kind of free out there jazz a little bit too, right? Like it's very kind of experimental for Cannonball. And to me, Cannonball's live stuff is just the cream of the crop. I mean, the Riverside records he did a lot, like San Francisco, and all the other ones are. There's just something amazing about a live Cannonball set. I mean, his introductions to the music,
Oh yeah.
talking about and stuff, and introducing some of the songs. I mean, I just love it so much. Yeah.
Yeah, Cannonball's live stuff, I think, from what I remember, his like Riverside Live at the Lighthouse, where he addresses the crowd and has some banter with the crowd, that was like, I don't know if it was the first time that people were doing that, but that like set a template where live recordings would include that piece of it as well. And he pulled that into Mercy, Mercy, Mercy on Capitol. I mean, there's tons of great live Cannonball. And one of the things with Cannonball is he's like, I feel like, so I have the 72 Poppin' in Paris. He's just cool. Like he's always been hip. Like if you look at like the album covers, the style, like the glasses that he's wearing, like well I think that's his brother. But anyway, they're just like a hip band. They have like a cool, West Coast ethos about them that I think even like some of the clothes in here, like the style, it's just incredible to see. So definitely ahead of the curve and trend setting in multiple regards.
They were just they were a working band. They were playing all the time,
Mhm.
right? Blowing people away. I mean, Adderley, it's a working band, which is a whole thing that doesn't get discussed enough. You talk about Art Blakey's band, right? All sorts of different bands would just hit, and there's just something that evolves from that musically, I think, with the musicians. But I find it just riveting. Here's another thing too, guys. Like, I think about this more, and we love studio recordings. They're very important, but man, there is something about live tapes which is different than studio recordings. And I think one of the reasons why it's it's connected with so many of us is because the music is just happening, and it can be on another intensified level, even more that you just can't capture in the studio. but just the
Right.
energy and that popping in Paris, especially with, I mean, where they're going. And and you know, I don't know if it was Ken McKell, somebody brought up with me too about, you know, when you think about what Miles was doing and all sorts of, as we're starting to go into fusion, all sorts of things that kind of drench it a little bit, you know, things that are rubbing off and things of the time. But I don't know, Cannonball Adderley was a hell of a performer and his groups were just so strong. I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is my favorite of the two, the 69 Bordeaux one. I mean, there's like a 9-minute version of Work Song on this.
Oh,
Mhm.
I
You
love
know, and then
That's the Nat Adderley track, right?
yeah, and
Yeah,
there's a
that's
couple of
great.
Nat Adderley tunes on this, and then there's a bunch of Zalinol tunes, and then on side A, the second song, I'm gonna butcher the name. Play by, how do you say this? Monha de Carnaval. It's a Bonfa song.
Mhm.
Manya,
I know.
warning.
Thank you. That's greatness, and it's, you know, a 10-minute version. So these live recordings, when they stretch out on these tunes, and you know, they just have so much to say, it's just wonderful. Love it.
And he was still so young, right? He passed like 3 years after that. Crazy to think about.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Yeah.
like where these recordings are showing where he was going, and it's, you know, kind of like a lot of these artists that pass away too young. You're like, man, where would they have ended up, right? Like, how would they have changed the music themselves, like, you know, the Dolphins and Cannonball and folks like that. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I agree,
really,
Zev. I think he's a great band leader, and you know, like you're right. Like I feel like when people talk about, you know, great talent scouts and band leaders, they go to Blakey, but Cannonball, you know, he was, you know, doing his thing. You know, definitely deserves to be in that conversation.
For sure. Let's talk about Shelly Manne and his
yeah.
men, jazz from the Pacific Northwest. Um,
Speaking of West Coast,
this is, you know, I think this must be the first archival sort of Shelly Manne release that there's ever been before.
Mhm.
And this compiles two separate performances. The very first 1958 Monterey Jazz Festival, with Herb Geller and Stu Williamson and Russ Freeman and Monty Budwig. And then these recordings that we had, you guys know I've been working with the Penthouse Tape Archives for the last 10 years or so. And there were these two air checks of Shelly Manne and his men, a different band with Hampton Haas and Monty Budwig and Conti Condoli, and also Frank Strozier. It was just an opportunity. You know, Corey Weeds and I are really, I think, we're very connected at the hip in certain ways with our tastes of music, and I know that we love this music. And I had taken this to Corey, and I was really passionate about this project happening. And several years ago, I actually met Flipman, who was Shelley's widow, lived to 102 years old. I
wow.
actually had the pleasure of going to her home and playing for her the music that's on this release. And she was totally in favor of this project coming out. And Corey and I had worked on this a while back. I, you know, we could have put this out possibly a year ago, and I think we missed the deadline. And then we didn't put it out for the last record store day, and we kind of held on to this. That's what I'm talking about, the crystallization. Sometimes the way that these releases come together, that can take a different path itself. But I'm really very excited to bring this out, though. I think that this really reminds us of the greatness of this artist. And yeah, it's like the epitome of the West Coast jazz scene. And I love Shelly Manne, and it's nice because again, it's a live dose, you know, and I love the recordings from the Manhole and other clubs that captured him. He's, you know, one of my favorites. But anyway, it's a very personal project. It was really nice to be able to work on this with Flipman, and I'm just happy we're putting this one out.
Yeah, this is probably top three from this for me from this record store day. I love the 58 Monterey recording. It's great.
Did you duck when you heard the airplane?
Yes. But the man, the Penthouse recordings just keep pulling absolute gold out of those tapes. I love the very beginning of, or I can't remember if it was on side C or D, where it's got what's the gentleman's name that was the radio announcer?
Oh,
Or, you know-
Jim Wilkie. Yeah, he's still with us, by the way, too.
wow.
He's
Wow.
been involved on all these projects. He's got a set of the broadcast tapes, and so does the Puzo family has a set too. Yeah.
Nice.
It's just
Eloquent.
amazing. You go in there and you hear him. He's like, "Welcome back to a night of jazz at the Penthouse," and it's like that whole live recording that you can sit and kind of put yourself in Seattle in 1966, hearing this come out of your little AM radio or whatever. Just really good, really good.
Yeah, I had a chance to listen to that one. Sonically, it's impeccable. I think it's really well done, as Chris pointed. And I think it's cool because it captures two different moments in his career, late 50s, mid 60s. It's terrific. And I agree, it's one of the best out of this batch. Zev, so from this Penthouse recordings that we're talking about, what's like the span of years that they have kind of?
Early 60s, probably around 61 to 68, 62, 68. Yeah,
So
it's
there's
it's
a
a
lot.
range. Yeah, and like we've been mining it too. And there's still some good treasure in there. Some really great stuff that we can put out. We did the Cal Jader last November, Catch the Groove. And
Mhm.
also there were 3 sides that were made up, or 4 made up of the Penthouse recordings of Les McCann from Never a Dull Moment release too.
Yep.
But it's amazing because the Puzo family, Charlie Puzo Sr., he treated those musicians very, very well. They all had a chance, by the way, of opting out, and everyone participated with the exception of Miles Davis over those years. And I guess the bigger point is to think about that really captures the music in his golden era, right? That you were able to have these artists come into town that were on tour. But it's amazing. I've never, there are a lot of great archives that I've been working with, but my gosh, you can see there has been really an abundance of really terrific stuff. Great, important documents that have been tucked away in that archives. So there's still some really great stuff that'll hit you over the head and knock you out. I don't even want to say it for this conversation. I'd like for people to be excited to know that there's going to be more stuff coming, and we're working towards that. So I thank Jim Wilkie and Charlie Puzo Jr. for their help, because they've been working with me and entrusting in me and had all the confidence to make these happen. It doesn't always work like that. Sometimes things just naturally come together.
Yeah, these Penthouse, the Mojamalls were all stunning. Those are like essential jazz records, in my opinion, all 3 of them. The Les McCann is amazing. This one's great. Like I've reached for these records, Zev, and listened to them a lot more than a lot of the studio recordings I have. I just gotta be honest, like the Penthouse stuff specifically, man. The Mojamalls, just wonderful work you've done.
Oh yeah. Even the Coltrane one, right? That Coltrane one is crazy. I love it.
The Coltrane one's a little interesting, right? So we know that's recorded at the Penthouse too for the Love Supreme live in Seattle, but those tapes are actually from a different source. John Coltrane had a dear friend who recorded those. Oh my God, I'm spacing out on his name right now. Anyways, that was a different recording engineer, but recorded off of the same equipment. And but yeah, a lot of stuff was going down in Seattle. And a lot of stuff think about it, was going down in a lot of other, I don't like to say the word secondary markets, but outside New York, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, all country in these years. These artists were touring, by car, usually town to town, playing these gigs. And it's really something though. Yeah.
And it's worth noting on the Shelly Man, Stu Williamson is on trumpet, and Shelly picks excellent trumpet players. Like he has Joe Gordon at the Blackhawk, and then Stu Williamson. I have at least one of his records on Bethlehem, and he plays sideman on a few Bethlehem records. And he is definitely somebody to check out if you're unfamiliar with him. And the fact that he's on this, I think, is really cool. As well as some other West Coast guys like Russ Freeman, who, plays, a lot of West Coast. He's on Chet Baker Sings. He plays piano on that. And so, I mean, the lineup here is pretty great. So I just wanted to note that as well.
Yeah, I gotta say one more thing about this. The second set. Connie Candoli is one of my favorite trumpet players, regardless of East Coast, West Coast. That dude was so amazing. And then Frank Strozer's flute playing on the Seattle recording is just wonderful. Love it.
Baker and Jack Sheldon in Perfect Harmony, the Lost album. This is an all analog recording of a lost Chet Baker and Jack Sheldon studio album that was recorded in 1972 in Tustin, California, produced by guitarist, producer, arranger Jack Marshall, and also a gentleman named Hank Quinn. So this has got an interesting story. First of all, this predates Chet Baker's official comeback by about a year. So this is very historically important. And as far as I know, it's the only meetup of these two friends of Chet and Jack. But, supported with a great cast of pianist Dave Frischberg, bassist Joe Mondragon, and also drummer Nick Ciroli, who was the drummer for the Tijuana Brass. All West Coast heavies, right? Here's the interesting story and how this starts. So last year I was approached. I got a referral from author and historian Jeff Gold, who was talking with producer Jeff Pollock and also the legendary filmmaker Frank Marshall. Frank Marshall is The Bourne Identity, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Goonies, co-founder of Amblin Entertainment, a million more crucial, important films. Listen, just a very important guy in the world of cinema, but he is the son of guitarist Jack Marshall, and his family was sitting on this tape for in their archives for a long time. And I understand that Jack Marshall had been trying to shop this tape around to put it out back in the early 70s, and in 73 he suddenly passed away. And the tape ended up in the family archives for decades until last year I was contacted. I heard the music, and for me, I connected with it. I love all these musicians. I really love Jack Sheldon a lot. He's really a great trumpet player, a great vocalist, an amazing personality. And when I moved to Los Angeles in 2005, I used to go see this guy every chance I could. I saw him a bunch of times. I saw him at like Jackson, Glendale. I would see him down by the airport. I see him at Catalina's. And he was a guy that I was introduced to, not through his TV show Run Buddy Runner from the Merv Griffin show, as a lot of people would recognize him from. But I, on Saturday mornings, like, we're all about the same age. For me, I was watching cartoons, and Schoolhouse Rock would come on at the end on these ABC ones, and there would be Conjunction Junction. I'm just a Bill. And that was Schoolhouse Rock. And by the way, Schoolhouse Rock also introduced me to Blossom Dearie, to Grady Tate, to Dave Frischberg, a lot of other amazing artists, and it was great music of its time. But man, this is a really interesting album. I think the music is terrific. It's short, it's 35 minutes. But this is something that's really heartfelt from the Marshall family, and Mr. Pollock, I want to say, who were very trusting in me to be able to bring this project out. I've had the good fortune of working on 2 Chet Baker projects prior to this, the Live in Paris release on Elemental Music, and then also Blue Room, which came out on my Jazz Detective label last year. And I'm just, it's a wonderful release, and it was an honor to be involved. And I think this is a really cool record, and it's an all analog recording. Matt Luthen's worked with the original tape reels, and he did all the straight engineering on this from the tapes.
So I kept a copy because as I listened to this record, I said, wow, I gotta keep it. Here's the artwork. Here's the tape. And really nice pictures. I mean, look at this, right?
Oh yeah.
So Zev, I think, yeah, you were spot on. How I felt about this. There's Chet Baker release every year, sometimes, oh, I know what's gonna come. But this really struck me as a really musical, and they just seem happy to be doing what they're doing. It has such a vibe, such a fun record to listen to, both like sharing vocals, sharing trumpet solos, in a very spontaneous way, complement each other. They're not like, soloing or singing over. It's just so mellow and smooth. It's just so much fun, and it's really captivating. I think for the ones that I think, oh, I know what's gonna come, don't count on that, because I think this record is special.
That's awesome.
I think it's really interesting that it's a studio recording that that just sat in an archive for decades. So yeah, it's really, really interesting story there. And the fact that it was a year before his comeback, as everyone knows it. So that's very interesting.
I was really happy with this one. I was really happy. And I think whoever picks it, decides to pick, is gonna be surprised and quite happy with this release.
Let's go to the Mighty Warriors.
Yes.
Elemental Music.
Oh, this is
Now,
fire.
thank you. I agree. I was really pleasantly surprised and excited when my co-producers on this project, Carlos Augustin Calmbert, and especially Jordi Soleil, came to me. And they said, how would you like to put out a Mal Waldron project?
What a question.
And I had worked on Searching for Grenoble that came out on the Tompkins Square label, which was from the Grenoble Jazz Fest solo piano concerts in 1978. I've been listening to Mal Waldron, like a lot of us, for a very long time. He's really, I think, as the years go by and the more I listen, I just realize how deep and important he really is. He had his own language of phrasing and stylistically the way he played. His composing. When you look at John Coltrane's Prestige output, you see so many Mal Waldron compositions that he brought to these recordings. But Mal and Steve Lacy and Reggie Workman and Andrew Surreal are the Mighty Warriors. They are these really virtuosic artists who I kind of liken to being like painters in the audio sense, and it's just really a thing of beauty to listen to them play together. There is a level of maturity in their playing that they're able to connect. This is just what I hear when I listen, and I just find the music really moving, and very exciting to listen to.
Yeah.
And Mal Waldron is someone who I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I've been on like a total deep dive of him over the last several years, listening to him on all these small labels, whether they were in Italy or in Japan, and he made a lot of records, but there's also a lot of incredible musical statements. Let's not forget too, he was on the very first ECM album from Manfred Eicher, Free at Last, which was quite an accomplishment. That's a very cool record too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I just think he's so important. Steve Lacy and him go together like they just complement each other very well. They played together. There was a history, and I just really enjoy this project a lot. I had to get Adam Schatz to write the liner notes. I think he's really an amazing guy who knows how to read the tea leaves and speak to the genius. So we had him do some liners, and also spoke with the great Dave Varellas, and we also spoke with Reggie Workman and Andrew Surreal we interviewed, and I'm really happy. But oh yeah, let's talk about the narrative, right? So this is from his 70th birthday party. They did a series of concerts for him in Antwerp in 1995, and that's where this comes from. There's actually some video footage online of these performances too that some may have been familiar with. But I don't know, there's just hauntingly beautiful statements. And when I listen to this, it really just kind of takes me away. This one is really, I've heard a lot of feedback. People love this record. I'm
Yeah.
really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
And we also want to thank Barney Willen's son, Patrick Willen, and his wife, Sato, who are very close friends with Mal Waldron's widow, Hiromi Walden. That's
Mhm.
how this recording came into the fold at Elemental Music. Elemental's been working on a number of Barney Willen projects over the years, and Patrick and Sato are family to us. So anyways, but this is, the Mighty Warriors, and yeah.
Yeah, it's so this is a live date. It sounds exceptionally good, and the crowd, I feel like even the crowd sounds good. Like the applause before and after, it like everything just like sparkles. It sounds
Mhm.
unbelievably good. The playing is they do two monk songs. Steve Lacy in particular is like a monk disciple almost.
Yeah.
And then Mal Waldron also to a degree. So they play two of those. There's a Reggie Workman track. I forget which side, it might be side C. And it's just he bows his bass. He plucks strings. It's a little more creative than like a 4/4 bop track. That's not what it is. But this is not like super challenge. I mean, this is like beautiful music. I was blown away by this when you sent over the files. I know I mentioned that Art Tatum was my top pick, but after going through everything and hearing how good the file sounded, and then there were a couple reviews that were put up, I knew that this was going to be the one I wanted to get. So I was able to grab this. I highly recommend everybody go check this out, and if you can grab a copy, do so. This is absolutely wonderful, and the liner notes are also top notch as we have seen in our previous kind of reviews here. But just to kind of go through some of the people that were interviewed and spoken with, you have okay, so you have Andrew Cyril, you also have Reggie Workman, then you have VJ Iyer, which he's playing now. He's playing with Tyson Shorey and some of the other just killers today. I mean, VJ is awesome. So the fact that you were able to speak with him is really cool. Evan Parker, which he's from that kind of like avant school. So to be able to get his thoughts on these guys, I mean, it's an incredible collection of some of the best players that you've been able to capture their thoughts on this. But just awesome, and the photography is great. The drumming's excellent. I mean, the cymbal work from Andrew on like the ride cymbal and how it's complementing, what Steve and Mal are doing is beautiful sounding. I mean, it's wonderful. So I have nothing but praise for this one. Highly, highly happy to have this in my collection.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm
Thanks.
definitely gonna be. I'm getting in line early to pick this one up at RSD for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Love you talked about the Soul Note stuff, Black Saint Soul Note stuff they did together. Those two guys just really magical together. Mal Waldron and Steve Lacy. They recorded a lot together, and to hear this super great sounding concert from 1995 after they had played together for so many decades is really great. Love it.
Yeah.
And Mal Waldron, I think, has one of the best and most sought after Village Vanguard records, right? That record is unbelievable. That live one at the Village Vanguard.
Yeah.
Do you have the video?
No,
It's
not
on you. Yeah, there was a video that was released. There was a series of them. There was a Ron Carter one. There was a Freddie Hubbard
Hmm.
with a quartet, I believe. And this was one of them. Yeah, you're talking about Woody Shaw, Charlie Rouse, Mal, Ed Blackwell, and Workman, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's from that Soul Note Records. I've got one of the volumes, but there's a video of that too, which is a lot of fun to check out. It's on
We'll
YouTube.
definitely check that out.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great stuff. But it's so interesting in all sorts of things. Solo, trio, quintet. No, it's just amazing musician. No, but I find that like of the cats, I don't know. I keep discovering magic in his output and his canon, and I keep finding recordings that I haven't had before for like I said, so many different labels. Yeah, but some gold though, really, really great. And it's nice that we get to celebrate him and here we are talking about how great this guy is. Like, hey man, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be I'm on the hunt to try to find more. There's actually a radio broadcast I found of Mal and another artist. I'm not even gonna get into that, and I'm hoping that it pans out and the music is good. And let's talk about that. You always got to play Guardian. All these recordings were professionally vetted, okay? There's no grab going on. If the music wasn't happening, it would not come out. We really have to be guardians and protect the legacies of these artists too, to really have a discerning ear and put out the very best of the best. So, but again, because you're talking about live performances, it's a whole different spectrum in terms of possibilities and even reasons to find the excitement. And a lot of that is just because of the roux, if you will, of the stew, the broth that's made up of these different musicians when they play together and how it comes down. So anyways, very exciting. It's so awesome that this record's connecting with people though. I
Oh, yeah.
love Waldron. Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of I've been getting into steeplechase records a lot lately.
Oh, sure.
Just all the live stuff from like for that they recorded with Dexter and
Cliff
just every,
Jordan.
yeah, Cliff Jordan, all those live recordings from those clubs and that's why I just love this stuff. I mean, the experience, because I live in Texas, right? So we don't get a lot of jazz artists here, even modern ones. I did get to see Herbie this week, which was amazing. Herbie came to town, but so we don't get that experience, right? And I love the live club experience that you get on all these releases. It's unbeatable.
It's different. I don't know. I just think maybe it's why these are so popular. Like we're finding a whole other aspect of these great artists that, and there's a lot of great recordings. So we'll
Well,
keep
they're
doing
not restrained, right? I mean, there's confinement in a studio, right? Like you're trying to make a 45-minute record or whatever. It's and you want to get 7, 8 tracks on it, whatever. And you're not. I mean, there's tons of studio recordings where you have like a whole 20-minute song, but
Mhm.
it's just I love that when they get to stretch out and you can tell they're just there with the audience and you get that connection between the people in the seats and the people on stage. It's just something totally different.
Totally agree. I completely agree with you. Yeah.
This is a Sun Ra recording here. It's live. Like so the variation on each of the tracks. I was talking with Chris about this a little earlier. It feels like, this is yeah, I don't have too much experience with Sun Ra. I have a couple of his early titles. And it is an artist I do want to get more into. But I think what was surprising to me was when you listen to the crowd, it's not like that Steve Lacy one. It feels like there's a crowd and they're applauding, before and after the songs, they're excited. This feels like I'm at church. Like it seems like the crowd is a part of the audience of the performance at some points, and when you're listening to it, you feel like you're part of it. So it's almost. I was joking with Chris. I'm like, if you have like nothing to do on like one night and you want to like hang out with some people, throw this on. It feels like you're there with them. Like there's like a chanting going on. It's all over the place. Every track is very different. It's which is kind of nice because you get kind of a range of different styles here. But yeah, I just thought that it was completely immersive because of that like live element and how the crowd is behaving. And honestly, like at points, it's like, is that the crowd or is it just there's a ton of people on stage? Like there's like a weird kind of like energy
Oh,
that's moving between the two. And I just loved it. I mean, I thought it was a really fun experience. I'll definitely be revisiting it.
it was fun working on it. I first got into like the larger ensemble, these recordings that were made in the 50s in Chicago. They got reissued. There you're holding up the beautiful Beryl Oakland photo, pictures of tape boxes. Well, let me first say this is the first collaboration I've done with the Sun Ra Estate. And we worked with Michael D. Anderson at the Sun Ra Archives, who compiled the music for this release from 2 performances from 1977 and that going back to 1976. See how we did that there. But
Right.
anyways, and they go together that way very well because it ends with a second set and the other one But you can see this package though. I mean, we really tried to collect all sorts of great photographs and information, photographs from Hal Rammel, who was there, also images from Tom Copy that were actually done in like San Francisco. But we had abundancy of great images. Yeah, John Corbett wrote the main liner notes. But listen, Mike, one of one of the things I really like about this recording, first of all, I find Sun Ra to be extremely interesting musically, and I love the music. But there are these moments of the inside and the outside in terms stylistically, and I think that Sun Ra played all, I mean, it speaks to the diversity in the repertoire that band plays. And it's not all avant-garde, if you will. And it's really, pardon me if I'm not articulating this the right way, but there's all sorts of these different inside and outside moments of bliss. Hearing them do Rose Room, for instance, and some of this other repertoire on here is really, it's very exciting and it sounds really good.
It
These
does.
tapes,
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. It does sound very good.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Michael transferred the original tape reels for us, and we and Joe Lizzie, who's been working on all the other Sun Ra projects, many of them, I should say. I wanted just to keep the formula intact with what Sun Ra customers and fans are used to. But it's nice though. I think his audiences are definitely transcending to younger people that are discovering him now.
Yeah.
This orchestra is still an active touring machine. They're on the road all the time. And Marshall Allen, 99 years old, he is an active member of this group, and we interviewed him for the package too, which was exciting. I'm happy, and I got to tell you, stay tuned.
Yeah.
I got a new
Nice.
Cinema project that will be coming
Awesome.
out soon, another one that is going to really connect with a lot of people, and I'll get into that at another time.
I was just going to point out the range of releases that you have. So like that Mal Waldron, Steve Lacy, and Sun Ra are, I mean, they're different, but they're on one kind of side of a spectrum. And then you have like Art Tatum, right? It's like there's like something here for everybody.
Hmm.
So there's a
There's
lot
a lot of
going
somethings
on.
for everybody. I mean, that was the exact point I was kind of thinking of. Just the breadth of these releases this record store day. It's just crazy. I mean, it's amazing. And there is something for everybody. If you want to hear, more challenging stuff, I mean, not that the Sun Ra or the Mal Waldron are like super out there, but
Yeah, I wouldn't
it's
shy
definitely
away from those. They're not like,
no.
when people talk about like free jazz and avant-garde, they'll tend to think of like Coltrane Ascension and maybe, some Albert Eiler stuff. That's not the style here. That, it's not harsh. It's, this is, interesting, welcoming music you can, really get into.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mike, have you heard the latest news from Neptune? Have you heard the latest news from Neptune? Have you heard? I'm sorry, there's some awesome moments that are just like mind blowing too, with the energy that's absolutely flowing from that Sun Ra.
Yeah.
He was amazing. Anyways, that's what I was quoting, just kind of joking around. One of the tunes starts with those words. Have you heard the latest news from Neptune? And I just remember like my mind got bent listening to this for the first time. I mean, it's really cool. It's really cool record. And I don't know, like presentation wise, again, like I just wanted to build something so great for Sun Ra, something that I was working with Burton Yount. He's our designer for the cover on this, and Gordon G assembled the rest of the package. But Burton, I said, Burton, I need something. I want to be thinking of something very modern, something that be maybe a piece of art on the wall at MoMA or the Whitney, or something that really represented something powerful.
Yeah.
And I was doing some photo research, and we found these images from photographer Jan Persson, who he passed away a few years ago. He was really an amazing photographer. And this picture leaped out at me, and I was just something, I was like, hey Burton, can we do something about this? I really like to dress up these projects. He designed the font of Sun Ra that you see with that. He designed that
Yeah.
out of nothing.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Burton's an incredible man. And
Yeah, it's amazing.
I work with John Sellards too, and there's Daryl Norson, who's amazing, and Gordon, all sorts of guys. But Burton has just, he just blows me away. But I want that. I'm sorry, I have to build the front of the house. It's about the music, it's about the editorial, it's about learning, but it's also about having something that just feels powerful. I feel some energy coming from that package, and I hope it's going to connect with people too. I think Sun Ra really matters, and I think we're going to be listening to his music for a long time from now. I got one more here.
That's a heavy hitter.
And we're talking about Sister Rosetta Tharpe, the 1966 concert in Limoges, or Live in France. These are never before issued recordings from the godmother of rock and roll. And guys, I want to just say here for everyone listening, I have a very eclectic tastes, very eclectic taste. I listen to a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm into a lot of different types of music. I started listening to Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I discovered her in the early 2000s. I was a salesman working for Universal Music Group, and we did this reissue of her album Gospel Train on Mercury Records. I'll never forget it. Verve Music Group actually reissued it, and I got a promo copy of it. I used to listen to that thing all the time. And it really heightened my awareness of who she was, and I thought she was so interesting, and I learned a lot, and I realized she had quite a recorded output. And something that's really remarkable about Sister Rosetta Tharpe is that she was a female African American artist who had the opportunity of going to Europe multiple times, building and cultivating an audience of followers who loved her. And the audiences in Europe, you know, this project, I wanted to build something that would be really a great recording and a tribute. Talking about the music, in 2017, I was doing a search with the folks at INA in France. You know, that's where my Larry Young in Paris came from, Wes Montgomery in Paris, Albert Eiler Revelations. You're on in this batch here, the Cannonball Adderleys and Yusef Lateef. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about Yusef.
Oh, we have to talk about
Oh
that
yeah,
one.
yeah.
But Sister Rosetta Tharpe is really a towering figure. And it's amazing to see that she's getting so much recognition and touching a younger generation. We talk about, you know, obviously Brittany Howard and Rhiannon Giddens and others, and more people are discovering her. And she was a trailblazer and a guitarist, and a great guitarist. So in 2017, I'm doing this search for Ina. And knowing that Sister Rosetta had played Europe, I said, why don't we see if there's some Sister Rosetta lying up in those hills? And they came back to me and said, it's interesting, Zev. We have a concert that she did in Limoges, France in 1966. And there's a lot of bootlegged Sister Rosetta out there and all sorts of live recordings here and there. But these recordings have never been out before. They were professionally recorded by the ORTF in a theater, and she has them eating out of the palm of her hand. I get the chills, like 3 encores. And it's a really riveting performance. It's her and solo guitar on Up Above My Head. I'm pretty sure it's her playing piano, but it's a guitar player's record. It's a great record. It's going to celebrate her. It celebrates her, and it's really great music, and it's never been out before. And I think it's a great place to start with her if you've never heard her. It's just her, a guitar. It's raw, emotional, powerful music. And I really love this record, and I'm really happy. When I started this initiative to do the Deep Digs umbrella, a big part of this was getting a chance to turn the car back around for all sorts of projects that have been left to the side, left and right. I've been going down the archival recording highway, if you will. And for years, I tried getting record labels to put these out. And when I started Deep Digs, I had a chance to go to Jordi Soleil and Carlos Agustin. I said, can we do this, please? They have these tapes. I mean, I was like down on bended knee at that point because I didn't really even have very few other options to consider. But the guys at Elemental Music, Jordy and Carlos and Didier, oh my God, I'm spacing on his last name. Great guy, member of our team, forgive me. We've been actively working with Ina for years now. So I knew that this could be a really great collaboration and a fit, and Elemental could make the negotiation happen. And we did. And Jordy and Carlos were so generous to allow me to put this out. But man, like, I had fire under my feet. I wanted to get this music out, and it feels like I've concluded some sort of mission, if you will, because I've just been carrying these on my back for seven years,
Yeah.
talking to people about it, trying to get people to listen to it, and it's outstanding music. And yeah,
So,
so
so here she like rocking on SG, right?
big
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Nice. Beautiful picture of the tape. And I really, really love this one here.
That's awesome.
Oh, nice.
With the glasses. It's just, yeah, it's a tour de force here, this record, Zev. Really, really is.
You
And I think pay tribute because there's so many like women early in music or even like being pioneers and not getting the credit they deserve. Like Otelia Patterson, a blues pioneer in the UK. Nobody talks about her, you know. So I think it was quite opportune that this record came out, and I'm really enjoying to listen.
Thank you very much. We had some great writing too, of course. I'm going to talk about that. Forgive me. But we had Gail Wald, who wrote the acclaimed biography on Sister Rosetta, Shout, Sister, Shout. And we also had the French author and music historian Jean Buslin wrote a piece. He wrote a book about her tours in Europe,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
which has been documented. I mean, the whole thing just blows me away. What she was able to do. But we spoke, oh my gosh, amazing interview with Susan Tedeschi. I couldn't believe what we were getting from her. So insightful and wise. A great conversation we had, and we have that in the book. I got statements from Bonnie Raitt, from Shamika Copeland, from Henry Rollins,
Hmm.
from Brian Ray,
Wow.
Billy Gibbons.
and
Yeah.
Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top.
Mhm.
So I'm just really proud of this. It's nice to see it come out. I feel like we've really concluded a part of a journey here. Now the other half of the journey needs to be for people to be able to listen to, discover this music and listen to all of her stuff. There's some great writings about her, and she left an amazing legacy behind. And by the way, this year, 51 years since she left this planet physically. But this music still lives on. And I'm just really proud. Really, really proud of this one. Anyways, there's my streams of consciousness. I'll step back.
I love it.
It's cool.
Our great
We
friend.
want to do the Yusuf?
Well, hang on, real quick. I was just going to say our great friend Norman Maslov said this was his favorite of
Yeah.
all pieces. So
Yeah.
Mm,
really hyping this one up. So I'm interested in this one too. For
nice.
sure. So yeah, finally, Youssef.
Wow. So Yusef Lateef, Atlantis Lullaby, the concert from Avignon. Jordy and Carlos came to me with these tapes last year and asked me, how would you like to do a Yusef Lateef project with us? And I said, well, I love Yusef Lateef a lot. I said, I actually knew the man. I befriended Yusef Lateef when I was 20 years old. I was a communications broadcasting major, and I had a weekly radio program, and I would play this music on jazz. And I remember there was an advertisement in the back of Downbeat magazine in the classified section for YAL Records in Amherst, Massachusetts. I call, and who picks up the phone but Yusef Lateef himself? And he continues for a long period to send me new recordings he was working on at the time. A lot of them with musician Adam Rudolph. But this was before I discovered the Prestige and Savoy and the Impulse output in Atlantic, of course. But this is he's an amazing guy. And I really tried to speak with some folks in there that would talk about his greatness. Sonny Rollins, Joe Lovano, especially Adam Rudolph, who knew him very, very well. But these recordings were taken from a concert done in his European tour in '72 in France. It was captured by the ORTF. And once again, the great Andre Francis, who he's that guy that you hear at the beginning of Miles Davis in Europe introducing the band. Well, they recorded this concert, and it's a tour de force performance. And he's not the only virtuosic great in this on this recording from this concert. Kenny Barron is just amazing, and he's making great music now, including a brand new release on the arts label for Jean-Philippe Allard that's coming, I know, in May. But Kenny Barron, man, brings down the house. Bob with amazing supporting staff, with supporting help from bassist Bob Cunningham. And we just lost him, Albert Tootie Heath, who I just spoke to recently for this package. But this was a working band that was touring all over the world. I mean, they played whether it was the Keystone Corner or they played all over, and they toured Europe. I was really happy to be invited. I think that this really represents the great gifts that Yusef Lateef left for us. It's him at his very best. It's an incredible live setting, and I think you get a really great dose. It's really personal, and when I think about, not to be selfish, but been working on this whole thing, I felt like we really wanted to build something really great. Really wanted to have, wanted to celebrate him. I hope, like all these other projects, I really hope that this rises the tide for people to go back and listen to him. But this band is great, and this is probably one of the best sounding live recordings you're going to find of this group. But he was really an amazing guy. He always had this thirst for knowledge. He was always studying, always learning, was aware of different cultures. Forget even building musical instruments and studying all sorts of different facets of music. From the perspective of being a human being, he may be one of the most mature and incredibly geniuses, man, that I had ever come across. He was 50 years older than me at the time, and he was just interested in talking with me as a young person. And I remember the conversations we had. We spoke a bunch of times. Let me tell you what he did. He did more than just sending me CDs. He went on tour in Europe. I remember on 2 occasions where he sent me postcards from being on the road.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
And on one occasion, he wanted to know who the guy was that headed our faculty, who we reported to. We were all radio broadcasting majors. And he wrote an unsolicited letter of recommendation to our professor, letting him know that he thought us kids were doing that we were all doing a great job at the station. He was just that's kind of like brushes off on me. I hear stories of photographer John Rogers, for example, who I know had a close relationship. I think there's even an NPR story. He was a gentle giant and a sweet person, but boy, man, did he really know how to bring it to the stage and deliver great performances. But there's so much to be said about this artist and what he was doing. I think he was always growing. I think he was always learning. And I'm just, it's very difficult. Like all these conversations today, guys, I'm giving you layman's terms from the guy that worked on it for that narrative. I don't always feel comfortable being the guy pontificating certain theories and this and that, but I just tell you from what rubs off on me and what I take away as being music fans like you, because that's all that I can really do. If we want to talk about comparing songs and certain solos and how things happen, I think the journalists and I think that the musicians can really articulate that. But this one, man, of all these releases was something that really got me choked up a few times. And I got to work with Aisha Lateef, Yusef's widow. I'm sorry, Master Lateef's widow. And recently, I'll share with you too, I met her in person. I went to Ahmad Jamal's memorial service several months ago, and she was there. Ahmad Jamal and Yusef Lateef were friends. And anyways, there's kind of these interesting connections and people and way that we meet people. But I love Yusef Lateef. I can't help but feel nostalgic. But I think that this is a really cosmic project, that the music is going to take people to another place. And, you don't need to have a owner's manual. Just put it on and listen and let it
Yeah.
take you somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's definitely fun to dive deep, but at the end of the day, the music speaks for itself.
Yeah. No,
Indeed.
it's yeah. You put out a great package, Zev. Here, there's some interviews with Aisha Lateef. Here's Kenny Barron, Adam Rudolph, Tootie Heat, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because he was a flute player himself as well, right? He also played the flute, and he worked with Yusef for many years, not only around those. And he has a great testament. Kenny Barron here, he's really on fire, and the music is so captivating and well recorded. So about this record, I'd like to ask you two things. First, we're actually discussing that last night because there's so many new records now coming, emphasis on flute, right?
Oh yeah.
You have people like Andre 3000, but you have Shabaka came out of a great record yesterday on flute. Carlos Nino, most of his work is on flute, And the discussion was actually flute is not making a coming back because it never went away. And I think this is kind of testimony to that. So what's your, how does it appeal to you? All these flute records coming out like mainstream now, and listen to you, Zev Lateef back in the day. How do you feel about that scene? It's so great, his legacy somehow, because he's one of the most cited guys.
I think he's a really interesting person. I think it's great that flute's having a renaissance period right now. Now let's talk about Eric Dolphy on the flute and James Moody while we're at it too. And there are a lot of other flautists that we can speak to. No, I think it's really cool. The Andre 3000 thing is quite a phenomenon to be able to bring that, to be able, and he's reaching all sorts of people that wouldn't be listening otherwise. I think it's a positive thing, and let the music take you on a journey from there. There's a lot to discover and listen to. And that's really so much about these recordings is the journeys that we go on, whether it's in our listening or learning and wanting to discover other recordings too. And there's so much to hear, so much to hear.
We were making some research discussing a lot of Horace Silver recently, and in the 70s had such a great run of concerts in the south of France. Is there anything like that in the vaults and in the lookout?
There could very well be. You stay tuned. No, I'm really honored to be able to have this privileged working relationship with the folks at INA in Paris to be able to search for these recordings. There's more. And I just say, let's just keep going. Hang on, hang in there. We're going to do what we can, but it's got to be meant to be. I'm not just rushing to bring anything out. It's a numbers game. It's a process. We have to listen. Is the music great? Does it serve the artist's legacy? And we got to be those protective guardians again. But it's my hopes I know there's going to be some very interesting recordings coming around the bend that I'm working on. I'm just like busting at the seams to share more with you. But this has been, for this Record Store Day here, this is a lot. And I don't know if I ever want to do something at this size again, because it's a lot of stress, and I want to make sure that everyone's able to get into the party, and that's very important. But I'm very grateful to Record Store Day, Michael Kurtz, Kerry Colleton, for allowing these projects to exist. It is because of Record Store Day that a lot of these projects come out. I have to remind people, because the long tail would be very difficult. We're talking about, these are built for collectors on the vinyl, lower quantities, and they designed to ship sold out. There,
Right.
and that's and it's because of that that they're able to really facilitate to make this a sustainable model. It's not meant to be Billy Joel's greatest hits. Okay, it's supposed to be a very, select amount of quantities that we're making for the fans. And we're always trying our best here, and there's a lot that goes into it, and things can go awry, and maybe somebody's gonna find a typo in the booklet or something or other. But we work really hard on this, and I have to thank everyone again, and I want to thank you guys for allowing me to come on to talk about these releases, because if I don't know, like I want to celebrate this music. We are all cut from the same cloth, all of us on this call, and I know so many of everyone, so many folks that are watching this. And I want to be inclusive for everyone. Like, we're all part of this together. I feel like it's been a movement, so to speak. It's really been phenomenal seeing how this thing has grown and grown. So I want to quit while I'm ahead,
Yeah.
but I'm not quitting, because there's going to be more to come for next November, and there's going to be more for next April.
Yep.
And let's just keep going.
Absolutely. I just want to kind of final comment. I just love the work you're doing. I keep all of your records from all the different labels in a couple of cubes all together. I love the format of 2, 3, 4 LP releases where you can really dig into the whatever the concert may be, reading the liner notes, just intensive listening experience that these things provide. I just love all the stuff you're doing, Zev, and I just want to thank you again for joining us. It's always great to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
we've been going, we hit on everything. We've been going well over an hour. So thank you for your time, Zev. Also, I know late last year you were interviewed or featured in the New Yorker, which I think is just awesome. So we'll link that in the description if anybody wants to check that out. That's a great article to go through. But yeah, if you're, so for viewers, please share this with your friends that are participating in Record Store Day. Let us know what titles you're most interested in. Leave a comment in the description. And remember to like and subscribe and all of that. So thank you everybody for watching. We're going to get out of here, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.